All the second stage tanks now pressurized. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with Buddy.
But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Let's begin it.
Hi. Sorry, Brian. I wasn't quite ready for that. Hello and welcome to HBR Talk 395. What a woman wants or doesn't or don't ask. I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator Lauren Brooks, the personification of perceptivity, Mike Stevenson, and
Nerd.
if he can get in, we might have Richard the Lionhearted, but we were having massive Badger technical difficulties, and so that might not happen. We have the Doge in charge, Brian Martinez, working in the background to make everything happen, and hopefully we'll see Richard. If we don't, we're going to try something different next week and see if we can fix that. But before we get into the topic tonight, we've still got to do what we've got to do. As always, Honey Badger Radio dishes out a smorgasbord of thought-provoking discussions, and as experiences both recent and long past have demonstrated, the provoked thoughts are fighting back. They've made it clear that for people like us, relying on third-party payment platforms like Patreon to fund our work is treading on thin ice, or building our house in the path of a rapidly growing wildfire. In light of this, we strongly encourage our supporters to switch at least their support for us to feedthebadger.com, the most stable way to help us out. And if you want to tip us directly instead of relying on any social media platforms tip jar, the link for that is feedthebadger.com/justatip. And as always, the same risk applies to our social media platforms, which is why you should further provoke the thought police by tracking our thought-provoking discussions on honeybadgerbrigade.com, where you can find your way to all of our content, as well as a link to feedthebadger.com in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. And with that, we will get into the beginning of the beginning. So last week we read this article. I'll go back to the top so you can actually see the title, which this title, I think the thing that got me about it is the fact that they called careful planning and financial accountability immature. Like that really is the reason why I chose this article. And I recognize that politicians are in a hurry to see more future taxpayers produced by the public so that they can then fleece them for everything they have in order to maintain a complex system of safety nets that actually just strangle people to death very, very slowly. But if the people do not at least have some sort of a stable income, they can't pay taxes. So it ultimately ends up being a very self-defeating vendetta against men here.
Yep.
But It was written by a woman.
This is a supplementary story to the story of men aren't good enough. And given that we've already established that men aren't good enough, the generation of men that we've created that aren't good enough also aren't good enough. We don't quite understand why the ideology that we've pumped into our country over the last century has only made things worse. That's not the point. The point is that men were never good enough, and they're still not good enough. And I know what you might be thinking, men, about how are you supposed to make this better. But whatever future you create where this is better, that's still not going to be good enough. All right? So just letting you know, men not good enough in the past, not good enough in the present, and not good enough in the future. That's it. That's the long and the short of it. Men just suck forever. So make that not happen, please.
But of course,
that's what I'm hearing, right? That's roughly the long and the short of it.
If men make that not happen, that's patriarchy and women most affected. That's the other part of it. How dare you? How dare you not suck? We expect to be able to say that you suck forever, and if you don't, then you make women wrong, and women don't know how to handle being wrong. So a brief recap. What we looked at here, right? The birth rate, the total fertility rate in the UK has been going down. It went way up for a while. You had kind of a boom in the 50s and 60s there with a dip, and then just has like crashed and burned. So that in 2024 it was 1.41. And of course, the powers that be are paranoid about this for many reasons, not the least of which is who's going to take care of all of the old people when they get too old to take care of themselves, if there are no young people. But this report says that the problem is not women, because it states that women are planning to have children. 9 out of 10 women want to have children, plan to have children, but men are putting that off in order to establish financial stability first. And as a result, women are having babies later. And at the end of it here, it points out that the average age of a woman in the UK when she has her first baby is older than it's ever been. And I looked it up. It's like 29, 30 years old. So it's still within the range of if you want to have a healthy baby, that's your first baby should really be born before you're 35. So it's still within the range of your baby's still going to be healthy, right?
And bear in mind that's the average. That means there's as many above that as there are below
that. Well, maybe maybe there are some that are well below and some that are well above, and perhaps there are more that are below, but some that are well above. Because there are instances that I remember reading a few instances, in fact, coming out of the UK where somebody had a surprise pregnancy and they were in their 50s and it's their first baby and it makes the news, and I'm sitting there thinking this is going to be very rough on both the mother and the baby. It's not a good time to start having children, but it does happen. It happens because women, I don't know if they forget that they're still fertile after they've decided they're not having children or what, but or they think that if they didn't all this time, it's because they can't. But along comes a super sperm. Either way, you never know what, without having the numbers in front of you, you never know exactly what the combination is above or below that gets to that average. But in any case, the total above and the total below will be fairly similar. One thing the UK doesn't have, I think, is the teen pregnancy rate that the US has. It used to be fairly normal for under the age of 20, a lot of women conceiving. And personally, I think that that's not something to encourage, because you don't get very far under the age of 20 before your parent there is still in high school. You don't want high schoolers getting pregnant, right? You don't want um, parents who cannot support their children bringing children into the world. You want them to wait until they at least have a stable form of employment and are capable of paying their bills. And it used to be that people started going for gainful employment in high school, and it was normal for most students to have a job. Um, if women were planning on being homemakers, besides learning from mom, grandma, and aunts at home, they were also taking a class called home economics, which in a lot of schools now you can't even find that. Um, it's It's essentially a class where you learn the basics of running a household, budgeting, cooking. You might even learn things like sewing, but and childcare. Used to be that you could learn a little bit about that in high school courses as well, but not anymore. Now they're going more toward programming and things like that. They want them at work, and they want them earning money. They want them paying taxes. They want them voting for safety nets that make the government more powerful, but they don't want them to be in charge of their kids. They want them farming their kids out to daycare systems and to public school systems where they can be programmed by the the federal system. And that's in the U.S., that's in the U.K., that's in the entire Western world. Um, And what you end up with then is the next generation and the next looking at this system and saying, we don't want our kids in this system. This is not a good system. We didn't like it and we don't want them to go through it. So we're going to change how we do things and not farm our kids out. And what the result of that is later childbirth, more planning, especially if you don't see them getting jobs in high school. Well, if they're not getting jobs in high school, and they're um, putting jobs off to get some sort of education that you have to get now in order to have a job, because everything requires some sort of certification, even if it doesn't. Even if you can do it, even if you understand the tasks involved in the job, can fully be capable of performing them without certification. There's a lot of jobs now that people will not hire you for if there's not some sort of certification. You have to have something on your wall that says somebody else approves of your ability to do this, and that's delaying people's start in the field of their choice to earn their living, and that is delaying babies, right? Senior Sticks gave us $2 and said it's not about healthy babies, it's about profit. And yeah, or at least it's about paying off the massive loans that all the different governments of the world have extended to each other. But I wanted to take a look at some of the comments. And these are newer comments. I looked before, and I'm going to maybe switch to the best rated comments after we look at these, but these are newer than the ones I looked at when I decided I wanted to look at some of the comments, and I can't find the ones that I was looking at before.
I just felt like I wanted to make some kind of statement about how the idea that teenagers want to fuck each other, and they always have, is an idea that's true to a large extent and also false to a large extent. It's very easy to look at the influence the media has had over us. That modern teenagers can look at TV and movies and the things that have been expressed to them along the lines of it's totally normal for you as a 15-year-old to want to fuck every 15-year-old in your general vicinity, and we look at any interpretation of that and go, well, no, let's not push back too far on this pushback. Of course, teenagers want to fuck each other, and so we need to develop some kind of media that can guide us through this obvious truth that teenagers want to fuck each other. But I would ask any of you listening to cast your mind back to when you were a child, to when you were a prepubescent child, and I would ask you to remember how you guided yourself through this notion that human beings, right, Homo sapiens, throughout all of history, somehow figured out that you're supposed to put that thing inside that thing. Like, obviously, as a teenager, it makes sense. I'm asking you to remember how you came about this as a child. You're like, really? People figured this out? Like, there's all manner of people who can't put two and two together, and yet somehow throughout all of human history, human beings without the advantage of verbal language, let alone written language, they all somehow managed to figure out that you're supposed to put that particular two and that particular two together. do you know what I mean? It's not intuitively obvious to a child at all. And for most of human history, it wasn't explained in biology class. It wasn't explained in sex education class. And parents kind of didn't explain it to their children either. They figured it out on their own. And the very idea that we found ourselves in a world where children are so taught about this from the earliest possible age that those jokes don't even exist anymore. The innocence that was presented to even adults, and this is what I mean. In the Stone Age, even adults didn't know what it meant to bump those particular uglies. But we live in an age where even very small children have been presented with the concept of bumping those uglies, to the point where so much of the mystery is gone. I just feel like this whole thing was built on the mystery. And far too many efforts have been made to dissolve the mystery of what it is that men and women like about each other, in a way that boys and girls don't understand. Do you know what I mean? Like, boys and girls, like, they don't understand this love-hate relationship they have with each other. And it's adorable to watch them sort of try to figure it out. because boys and girls hate each other when they're in lower school, but once they're in middle school, they suddenly love each other, and they can't figure it out. It's so bizarre to go from hating each other in that shallow way to loving each other in that, well, different kind of shallow way. Like, and I'm like, it's to some degree, society was so much better off when boys and girls were left with that mystery of why they hate each other so much.
Well, and at least they weren't inundated with massive numbers of messages about sex.
Yeah, they weren't forced with these sexual messages of why you should love each other. Well, you should suck each other's dicks, be they female or male dicks, and all that stuff. It's the world was a much better place when even adults were sexually innocent. But nowadays we live in a time when even children have no sexual innocence.
Yep.
The acceleration of sexual non-innocence has been thrust through our species to the point where even in my day and age, an 8-year-old had the most sexually sick sense of humor. Like, we would make jokes about rape. Now, I'm an early millennial. Like, when I was 8, it was 1990. And even back then, we were making jokes about rape before we even fully understood what rape was. But when I hear tell of the kind of rape jokes that 10-year-olds were making in the 2000s, I sort of go, oh, okay. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And it's each successive generation has had not just sexuality, but the process of sexuality presented to them as a point of joke. And each successive generation has dealt with it by making dark jokes about sex, like even 10-year-olds. So, I mean, even when I was a 10-year-old, we were making jokes about sex. I try to think what the 10-year-olds today.
Oh, Mike, it sounds like we lost you.
Yeah, you did lose me. Sorry.
Oh, okay, okay. I was going to say, we're not doing a thing where everyone else can hear you and I can't again, are we?
No, that was my fault. A wire wandered across the trackpad. But it doesn't matter. I've finished. Fucking someone else talk.
Well, a point I will make about this is having been one of those kids that never really had the innocent experience. My observation of the kids I grew up with, we made rape jokes. I grew up in a neighborhood where we beat each other up for fun too. Like, we literally beat each other up for fun. We had a boxing ring and boxing gloves and had willow tree whip fights and stuff like that. So we were a little different than maybe some of the other kids that other Gen Xers grew up with, depending on like what neighborhood you lived in.
You made a sound just now, but you were muted.
But
I got kicked out.
we definitely knew. But we also started sex education in like the 4th grade. And they tried to make us be mature about it, because 10-year-olds are great at behaving in a mature adult manner when presented with information that makes 30-year-olds feel titillated and start giggling. But this has been a long time. This has been around for a long time. I think they had sex education even in the 60s, even in the 50s, a little bit. They started inserting it into the public school system in the early 20th century, and it got worse over time. It was initially sold to the public, I guess, as people don't understand this. They don't understand how to prevent unplanned pregnancy, so we're going to teach them. And what ended up happening? Unplanned pregnancy increased. When you make people who aren't mature enough to control their impulses on their own, think more than they naturally would on their own about a behavior that comes with a lot of difficult to control impulses, you get unwise, impulsive behavior. And of course, up until the millennial generation, teenagers spent quite a bit of unsupervised time together during the latter part of the 20th century. I don't know that they spend so much unsupervised time together now, and hopefully that will reduce the teen pregnancy rate. But that used to be recognized as a problem, that we don't want parenthood to start at the age of 16 because we do want parenthood to be a successful endeavor. Richard Bier asks, what is that post-secondary school that now has a program in being an OnlyFans content creator? Is that real?
What?
Please tell me that's not real. Is that a
Holy
joke?
shit. God,
I
not.
hope that's a joke.
I hope so. Fuck's sake.
Jeez, Peach. So, Senior Sticks asks, what are these jokes? YouTube probably would eliminate us if we started describing these jokes, but for the sake of people to understand, I had to explain this, all right, in a court case once. Most rape jokes make the rapist the butt of the joke, portraying the rapist as a moron who can't tell the difference between a good idea and a bad idea. And of course, that's not necessarily the problem with most people who engage in criminal violence, and that includes sexual violence. The problem isn't that they don't know the difference between a good idea and a bad idea. It's very often that they don't care about the difference. Oh shit, Lauren, you're Robo again.
Oh my god. Ugh. I don't know how to fix this.
Smack the top of it. Whap.
Well, it's my phone.
Oh, that won't work.
No.
I feel like I should be saying red leader, this is gold leader. Set. Can we not have the technical difficulties for a minute?
That would be nice.
So the comments that I wanted to look at, the first one is actually below this first one here, but this first one here wasn't, neither one of these. Well, the first one was not showing when I looked at this the other day, and this isn't bad either. So here we have a person who is, I mean, it's bad. It's not bad show material. It's not the best comment. But a person here who is blaming men. This isn't looking good at all. A society that cannot / will not take responsibility for the messes it creates, whether it's telling women not to have babies, to save the planet and pursue careers instead, or telling men that men have no intrinsic value and are not wanted. Any society that then pivots and tries to shift the blame for the messaging they are responsible for will not just collapse quietly, it will collapse in the same manner a toddler throws a temper tantrum, but multiplied by 1,000,000. Right? And the thing that strikes me about this comment, besides the fact that they're blaming messaging but not individual choices, is that they think the only problem with society's messaging toward men is that we're telling men they have no intrinsic value and are not wanted. That's a big problem, and it is true. It's correct that we are that our society is doing that. They are telling men that. But if that was the only problem, it would be fairly easy to overcome by simply changing the messaging, right? But that's not why men are not trying to conceive children. It's not just that men are being treated as if they don't have any value. It is that men are being treated as if they don't have any human rights. That if they are in conflict with a woman, that the woman's interests override any human rights they think they have. So it's okay to enslave them. It's okay to deny them due process in both criminal and family court. It's okay to destroy their relationships with their children. It's okay to make them homeless. It's okay to crush them under the wheels of the court system, which is no longer a justice system because of all these ideas that it's okay to do these things. And if a man is asked to take that risk, oh, you should have babies because the state wants you to have babies. Here's the contract you're signing, okay? When you conceive with a woman, you don't have any guarantee that you will get to raise your child. Also, the woman might choose to not earn much of an income, and she can demand that you support both your own household and hers. And if you fail, if you can't do that based on the earning capacity that you have, the government will punish you. Who wants to sign up? Let's form a line at point A over here, starting with where'd everybody go? And they're wondering why men aren't signing up for this. And they don't understand that if you can't at least guarantee that the state will not unfairly exclude fathers from their children's lives and rob them to pay for a lifestyle the mother has that is detrimental to the welfare of the child, they don't understand that that is a detriment to men wanting to conceive children. This is something that your politicians need to hear about. It's something that your news media needs to hear about. And it's something that we've been practically screaming about in the men's rights movement, the whole movement, for a century. Right? Not just us right now. This traces back to the days of Ernest Belfort Bax, talking about the difference in how the court system treats women versus men, mothers versus fathers. Right? So it's not just an issue of messaging. Messaging could change. You could tell men all kinds of positive messages. It might prevent some more suicide if you actually treated men as a society. If we treated men like human beings that have intrinsic value, are loved and wanted and needed, and should live out their whole lives. But it's not going to solve the entire problem because it's a tip of an iceberg that is so big it's touching the bottom of the ocean. Then we have there are two things here. Well, there's a third actually I didn't notice before, that this is really the one that got my attention. Right? Around a third of Gen Z babies have been aborted. Why is there no mention of that? We have this huge, massive problem of low birth rate, right? And this isn't just in the UK. Worldwide, 3 in 10 pregnancies ends in an elective abortion right now. Worldwide, right now. So 10 Plate Apple has a solid point. The birth rate would be higher with all those babies. And clearly there are reasons why women are choosing this. We don't necessarily know what they all are, but you cannot simultaneously encourage women to kill their babies before they're born and then have a high birth rate. Shaman King points out people respond to incentives. You have to give men an incentive or remove negative incentives. Yep, the deterrents are, I think, overwhelming at this point. So Wisdom Wizard responds to 10 Plate Apple with, you don't have to breed, it's not a law. We'll ignore the run-on sentence. I say as I don't ignore the run-on sentence. I hate those. But it is true. You don't have to breed. It's not legislated that people are obligated to have children, and it's obviously quite problematic to try to do that. It results in some very serious issues, not the least of which being that people would have children they do not want, and the children would be abused. But
I mean, you don't have to speak. It's not a law.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to have the freedom to speak. That is a law. But if men and women weren't breeding, then there would be no opportunity to speak. Because men and women have been breeding for so long that we have evolved the ability to speak. So something has to come first.
Yep.
And among the things that have to come first is, men and women getting along. Because, speech is great, but we have speech because we developed a species with men and women who can get along. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, among other things, you have the issue of speech goes along with association. Sex obviously goes along with association. Courtship goes along with association. And you don't have association if you don't have some sort of cooperation. If you don't want to be around each other, you're not going to cooperate on the concept of association with each other. You're not going to associate. You're not going to speak. You're not going to get to know each other. You're not going to develop a sense of camaraderie, much less intimacy. And there's no sex, no babies, no nothing. But what gets me is that thing, you don't have to breed. It's not a law. Where the government is headed is, and it's been proposed in multiple countries. I believe the United States has proposed. There's people in the United States that have proposed this as well. All right, we have something called the Earned Income Tax Credit here already. So, if you bring a child into the world for the entire time that you're raising that child, if your income is between a certain level of poverty and a certain level of middle class, there is a varied level of tax credit that you get. And your tax credit at the peak, which is in the middle of that income range, and can be increased based on how many children you have. At that peak, it can be, and often is for many people, larger than the number of dollars you paid in taxes. So there will be people that will send in their tax return or their tax paperwork, right? And they'll get back a check that is for a larger amount of money than their employers took out of their checks to pay taxes. In other words, if you don't have children, the federal government is charging you a fee. Because where do you think that money comes from? Your taxes. And now they don't tell you that in so many words. Like there's not some published news article out there announcing to the entire population of the United States, hey, because you are not included in this group that gets back this tax credit, and people who do have children are, you are being taxed to pay them to have children if you are childless. There's no announcement that's been made.
Yeah, and I'm sick and fucking tired of it.
Yeah.
Can I be the goddamn one to make this goddamn announcement? Stop fucking and stop taking my money. Or keep fucking, just stop taking my goddamn money.
In other words, support
Sick
your
of
own
this
children.
shit. Yes.
Yep, and that's the thing. That's the situation. That's been that way since before all of my children were born. Before I had my son, before my husband's ex-wife had their two daughters, that tax credit's been around for decades, and it's to incentivize childbirth. It's to incentivize raising a family. You do not have to be married to receive it. You can receive it while being a single mom. And I worked with a number of single moms that received that money. The presumed point of that money is to make it easier to have a family, to support your family, pay your bills, and so on. And I can't tell you how many times that I have seen single moms I worked with talking about what they're going to do with that money when they get their tax refund. You know, it's not a refund if it was somebody else's money. Right? I can't go to the grocery store and get a refund for my dissatisfaction with groceries that somebody else bought.
Yeah.
Right? That's not how that works. But I heard so many. I'm gonna go buy me a color TV. I'm gonna get a big screen TV. I'm gonna this. I'm gonna that. We're gonna go to this amusement park. We're gonna go spend a week in this location. I need this many days off. Not. I'm gonna get the car fixed that I've been complaining about.
No.
I'm gonna catch up on my electric bill. None of that. And so because it's quotes free money, they don't have to be responsible with it.
Right. No, it's bastardized. And what they use it for is to buy the wigs and the weaves and the nails and the shoes and the clothes and the makeup and all the outfits so that they can go out and catch another baby daddy and get thrown right back into the system. You know, it's never to take care of the children. Well, let me not say never. I fully believe there needs to be a complete audit. Like, there needs to be, receipts given for the money that they spend, showing and proving that is actually being used to take care of these children that they have, that somehow the father is just magically not around. Oh, I don't know, maybe he's in jail because you reported to the government that he's not paying his child support. Just the abuse is disgusting, and so let's talk about tax dollars, right? Because 50% of the money that we spend in this country goes to social programs, right, to benefit other people. This is less than what we spend on our military budget, right, which is also being defrauded by these people who they're in the military for like 2-3 days and they stub their fucking toe and they say, oh my god, I'm disabled, I can't work anymore, and they get $4,000 fucking dollars a month for life, for fucking life. Meanwhile, and this is new, right? This is new because again, the fraud in this country has like skyrocketed in the past few years, and the military is no different from any of this, right? So you have veterans, you have people who have been to war, actually seen combat, who can barely, get a couple dollars to the injuries that they've incurred while they were in service. But you've got these people who, I went to the Navy and oh my God, I had to wear a 100-pound gear. Meanwhile, every new person who comes in, that's what you do. That is the requirement. I went into the military and oh my God, my back, my head, no, it all hurts. And blah, 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 blah. The fraud is just disgusting. It's like there was some point in recent history where like the floodgates were just open, and all of this tax money that is being collected from you, me, and everybody listening to this and beyond was just up for grabs. And now we wonder why America is in trillion-dollar debt. Well, let's start counting this money. Let's start looking at the books. Let's open these things and start actually paying attention to what's happening here. And everything is really tied into each other. It's so intricately. It's the more you look at it and the more you see, the more disgusted I become, and I just want to fucking check out. I don't want to pay taxes. I do not consent to my money being spent in these areas, in these ways. And what is a person like me supposed to do? Go vote, go advocate, go vote these people out. Well, I'm one person. I have one vote. Even if I convince 10 people, you know what I mean? It's just not enough. There needs to be really hard line, accountability being held here. But I just don't see that happening anytime in the future. And it's sad because what's happening to this country is the destruction of the family. And you don't see people coming together and having children and, creating a new generation. I mean, what the fuck for? Because look at what you're putting these children, look at the system that you're putting these children into. I would not ever, I did at some point, several times in my life, I wanted to have kids. Oh my God, if I had kids and they had to deal with this shit, I would feel horrible that this is what they have to deal with. But where do you go from here? Where do you go? And I don't know.
It's the difficult part, figuring out a solution to this situation, because we can't just, we're not going to suddenly see a change in attitude in society, right? We do live in a largely misandric society, to the degree that people get offended if men expect that their accountability will be limited to things that are under their control. Right? You have control over, to a degree, you have control over whether or not you have sex. Like that degree is lowered by the fact that if a woman uses the same methods to get sex from a man that are considered rape when a man does them, even when they're not violent, and she gets what she wants and she conceives a child, suddenly it's his fault and he should have had more control, even though if he did it to her, he could be jailed for raping her. And that includes intoxicant facilitated rape, where the guy was dosed against his will, or where the guy was not in a situation of pre-consent, and she took advantage of him being passed out or blackout drunk or something like that, and There have even been situations where guys have been accused of rape because a woman has regretted doing that to him. So it's not even fair to say guys have control over whether or not they have sex. Under that circumstance, a woman can trick a guy, lie to a guy, use intoxicants or other means of overriding his refusal, and then still be considered guilty, even if he's underage, still be considered guilty of the crime of producing a child that he's not able to support or willing to support, and he can be forced to support that child. The youngest case I ran across a description of was of an 11-year-old boy, right, that was raped by an adult, and the adult collected child support from the family of the 11-year-old boy. You can't get a job when you're 11 years old. You might be able to, I don't even think you can still get a paper route. When I was a kid, an 11-year-old could get a paper route. They earned a pittance. They earned less than minimum wage, delivering newspapers, mowing lawns and stuff like that. But you can't now, I don't think, even do that, because you can't go door to door as an 11-year-old today. It's not safe. Probably was not entirely safe back then either. And you can't leave your 11-year-old unsupervised. But you can hold an 11-year-old accountable for being raped if that 11-year-old is male and the rapist conceived a child. Albert Nader Retro says, "Hey," says on the he's in the special chat. Gave us $10 Canadian and says, "Hey Badgers, it's been a while. I was wondering if you've been discussing the stat grape case of the former mayor of DeRidder, Louisiana, Mayor Misty Roberts. Also, the Avatar animations are great." No, actually, we haven't. I didn't even know there was a case. So now I'm going to have to look that up. We might discuss that next week on the show. But essentially with this, and Lauren really touched on all the high points. This concept here, you don't have to breed, it's not a law. And it shouldn't be. Right? The government should not be encouraging people to bring children in the world that they are not prepared to support. The government should be getting the fuck out of the way of parents who are trying to support their families. Stop robbing the public. Stop robbing Peter to pay Mary Sue, who really can't do all the things that she's credited with being able to do without working for them. She's actually relying on men to pay for all of her shit, right? And the government should definitely not be deciding who does and does not have children. That is not what government is for. Even if I agree that there should be, which I don't necessarily, but that there should be any government at all. If it's going to exist, it should be very limited in scope, and this is not within its scope. But Bungie 1 has pointed out, yeah, or yet no tax drones being deployed. And this is another thing. This is something that people don't realize. Yes, they have been. They have been deployed. They have been deployed for a long time. All right? In whatever country you live in, if you are single, you are being taxed to pay for other people's children. If you live in a Western nation right now. I don't know the names of the tax systems or incentives that other countries are using, but it is happening. And it's not just the earned incomes. That's the most blatant in the U.S. is the earned income tax credit. But you also have the whole welfare system, the food stamp system, especially the Medicaid system, the system that pays for medical insurance just for kids of parents with low incomes, and all of the variety of other types of welfare support that low-income parents with children are eligible for. As long as you have dependent children, that you're not eligible for
I got
if
kicked
you
out.
are a low-income adult, but
Oh,
you don't have children. Sorry, are you guys trying to talk?
No, some confusing things have happened in
Oh, okay.
in the room.
I'm kicked out again.
Lauren got kicked out again.
Okay. Well, we'll have to figure out a way to get her back in. Hopefully. If not, I guess it's going to be the panda face saying Lauren's parts. She'll have to come in, and we can hear her when she talks. We can hear her on your microphone, which might sound better than on her phone. But in any case, that was the ones that I really wanted to go over. Was just this exchange right here. Although this newer one, this was actually a pretty good thing to bounce off of as well. So the government and apparently the writers at the Daily Mail think the solution is to tell men, start knocking up those women, right? I hate that term, by the way. Women don't get knocked up. They don't get a bun in the oven. They don't become with child. They conceive. They are part of the deal. They are part of the cause, right? Every single woman who conceives a child is there for the conception, and unless she had no choice in it, it's as much her fault as anybody else's. But what do we get? I was gonna make this a after show article until I went through it and I realized just exactly how much it contradicts this article that we're looking at now, right? I mean, remember this article we were comparing last week to the complaints about incels. Oh, men who can't get into a relationship with a woman and want to get into a relationship with a woman are dangerous. Shame on them. How dare they, right? But now we have this claim that men are the reason why babies are not being made. Why aren't there more families? Well, it's men's fault. Except we have, by the expert editor, 8 reasons why women are put off by marriage. Not men, women. And again, this is another article written by a woman. At least she's writing about women's opinions this time. And the first thing, I'm not going to read the intro here. Well, yeah, I am. Marriage isn't for everyone, and women tend to have their own stack of reasons. The difference comes down to perspective. Some ladies imagine marriage as a constraint on their independence, masked under a veil of poor societal expectations. Conversely, others view marriage as a joyous union, bubbling with love, trust, and shared dreams. In reality, it is neither entirely this nor that, and smart women know that there are specific reasons that can dampen their charm toward the prospect of marriage. Well, it's gonna make me. I can't. I have to. It won't let me show you unless I change in. It's the same window. All right. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. There we go. So this is what I've been reading. And here are 8 reasons why some women are put off by marriage. Buckle up, we're going for a ride. So this intro is very simple, but this part right here with the 2 different opinions is part of the problem, right? And she nails it in saying it's neither entirely this nor that. It's mostly not either of those things. Okay, marriage is a partnership, and it's not the wedding day might be joyous, right? It's not like you're bubbling over every day that you're married. It's that you have created a sense of love and security and intimacy, care and consideration for each other, a sense of family with the person that you've chosen to partner with. And I think a big, huge, overwhelming piece, an overwhelming sized chunk of the reason why women started abandoning marriage, not recently, but as far back as the 1950s and 60s, is because they forgot that marriage is neither a constraint on your independence nor a joyous union, but a partnership, a family union with somebody that you love. So how can you decide to jump into something if you have such a poor conception of it in the first place? And of course, their first reason is fear of losing independence. Right? So I want to ask, how many guys out there that have been married, do you think of yourself in individual terms? Are you allowed to think of yourself in individual terms after you get married? My things, my house, my car, my this, my that, or is it what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine from her perspective, and you know what's mine is ours and what's yours is yours from your perspective? Because it seems to me when I watch other marriages, that's kind of the way it is. Anything that's his, that was his prior to the marriage, and is his after the marriage, in name at least, is hers. And anything that was and is hers prior and after is hers. And if he's lucky, she lets him use his things too. Right? If he's lucky, she lets him consider the things to be shared. But this is what the article says. Every woman cherishes her independence. It's like her secret treasure, her superpower. So what does she mean when she says independence? Because most women rely very heavily on men for support, even if it's not financial support. Right? We use electricity that is powered by male labor. We use a water and sewer and trash system. I don't know why they combine those in the U.S., but they do. Um, that are powered by male labor. We buy supplies that are delivered, manufactured mostly by male labor and delivered by male labor to stores that were built using male labor, or bought through online systems from warehouses that were built by male labor. There's more female labor than there used to be involved in the retail end of it. But without men, if all the men in the world disappeared right now, there'd be no utilities. There'd be no one to maintain the integrity of the buildings we live in. There'd be no supply lines. The points at which the labor becomes difficult, heavy, and dangerous in the supply lines would be the breaking points. And there wouldn't be anybody to stop the percentage of women who are criminally violent from dominating the percentage of women who aren't. And unlike with men, the percentage of women who are not criminally violent are very ill-equipped to deal with their same-sex compatriots who are. Right? Men grow up learning to fight back. Women grow up learning to cry for help.
Well, consider any sexual species. I mean, there's an awful lot of species in which the female is much bigger than the male, but even they wouldn't quite be able to exist without the male. I mean, even imagine an anglerfish without the male. Yes, you would still have the female anglerfish, the male being a tiny little wriggling guppy that only is exhumed up into the guts of the female in the event of a mating situation taking place. Even then, without the male, you would be an asexual form of a best eukaryotic single-celled organism. Yeah, we can play this game to the nth degree. Like, what would women be without men? It's the same as what men would be without women. We'd be an asexual species of bacteria. So it seems like a fucking moot point, doesn't it? It seems like a pointless argument. We happen to exist in a sexual species, so let's see what we can do to the best of our abilities with a sexual species that happens to have males and females in it.
Yeah, the idea of total independence as far as continuing the existence of the species is kind of silly. But in terms of women claiming to be independent, I would say it's more than that because, like I said, if all the women in the world vanished right now, yeah, the next generation would not be born. We're not quite to the point where we can reproduce without, like cloning isn't quite there yet. But if all the men in the world disappeared right now, women and girls would die off in the next month due to lack of resources. Everywhere that is first world, probably everywhere that is second world, maybe the women of the third world would survive longer. Maybe some of them into old age because they have to be a little bit more independent.
Could you
But
imagine how much peace and quiet there would be? Holy shit.
if all the women in the world disappeared,
Yes.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, it'd be quieter if I disappeared, I can tell you that. That's horrible. But yeah, so fear of losing independence. All right. It's bullshit from the get-go. Women are not independent. Women, when they talk about this, they're saying fear of losing, lack of responsibility to other people. So, for example, let's say I decide I'm going to visit family and I'm going by myself, right? And my husband and I agree on this that I'm going to drive the 80-mile distance to my nearest biological family and visit with them and then come home. And I'm going to be driving on interstate 75, which is also known as Drug Alley, and to the highway patrol and some other people, going to be driving through an intersection in the Dayton metro area called Malfunction Junction. And I've decided I'm going to do this, and the first thing that he might say is, well, why don't you take a different route? Because if you take one of the back roads, you'll have less traffic. You won't have to go through Malfunction Junction. It might take you a little longer to get there, but it's safer, right? My responsibility to him is to do my best to get home safe and sound in one piece with a vehicle that I didn't break in the process, because it's ours, it's not mine. And therefore, I should listen. Right? That's what women mean when they say losing their independence. They don't get to make all their choices themselves. They have to listen to somebody else's concerns and they have to consider the people around them, not having to have any consideration for their family, not being able to get their own shit together, pay all their own bills, provide all their own things. They're still quite happy to rely on the male labor run infrastructure. They're still quite happy to have all those little perks our society creates to boost women economically. They just don't want to have to be responsible to their family, much less responsible for their family. So when they say independence, what they actually mean is freedom from responsibility, not independence. But what they say here, so naturally the thought of a marriage can sometimes feel like a threat to this hard-earned liberty. You see, marriage is often sold as a happily ever after package, which, again, that's a mistake.
Fucking fantasy that's been
Yeah.
sold to you by Disney and numerous other fucking corporations, right? There's no such that doesn't fucking happen. People think, oh, and this is yet another problem that contributes to the reason why the younger generations are having so much problems trying to find a compatible mate and get married and settle down and have kids, right? Because there's this idea that it has to be perfect. Oh, it's this fantasy. Oh, he's gonna be 6 foot tall. It's this idea of perfection that people are striving for that is just completely unrealistic, right? You should be happy if you can find a person that you can tolerate for most of the time that you have to spend together. I mean, realistically, if both of you are working, you're out of the house for 8, 9 hours, maybe 10, 12 hours out of the day. So, you don't have to be burdened with their oh my god, he doesn't pick up his socks, but for only so many hours out of the day. And it's really the attitude that you bring to the relationship that determines the tone and tenor of how good it goes, right? Because listen, Mike is, I love him, but he's not the best at washing dishes. you know, but if I were to hinge the entire relationship off of the fact that I don't like how well he doesn't clean dishes, well then I would be throwing 8 years of my life with this man away. And for what? Because I don't want to dig in my heels and do a little extra fucking work? What is that? I don't, and this is something that I'm finding, and God, it's so far reaching. I mean, this even goes to like the employees, the new employees that we have. They're all like 20 somethings. They don't want to work. They want that paycheck though. And it's just this lack of accountability is just the easiest way to put it. But they don't want to put in the hard work. They just want to reap the rewards of showing up and saying, oh, I'm here. I'm clock that T. I'm here. Let me get that. No, that's not the fuck how reality works. That's not how life works. That's not how anything works. I mean, if I know what everybody says, anything worth having is worth putting in the effort to obtain. And that right there is just lost on so many people. And dare I say it's even lost on people of my generation. But it's sad. It's so sad to see. How do you teach people that this is the way to go when the path of least resistance is just so appealing for so many people? I don't know. But yeah, no, you've got so men and women. It's mostly women. I am going to stick my foot out in the sand and say yes. It's mostly women who these young women, I don't even call them young women, they're just girls because they're so just mentally deficient. But they're looking for the perfect situation, and there's no such thing as perfect, especially when it comes to relationships. It takes work, it takes effort, and that's what a lot of young people and mostly women are they just fail to be proficient in even fuck proficiency. they don't even care to try. So who would want to show up for someone like that? Who would want to show up and do their best for someone who is just like, maybe, it's beyond, anything that I can even hope to find a fix for. I just don't know how did you fix this?
It's a difficult fix. It is a massively difficult fix. Lauren, you're gonna have to mute because we're getting more RF. I think the difficulty is because you're on a phone and you're probably using Wi-Fi through the phone. It's going to be experiencing interference from like every device in the house that can connect to the
Yeah,
Wi-Fi.
but even last week when I turned my Wi-Fi off and Mike was
Yeah,
not here, so there weren't the other devices. I was
it
still
still
going
is having
robo.
problems.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll still keep trying, and we'll just do what we can. But
So did they not hear my rant?
oh yeah, they heard it, but they also
Okay.
heard it's you still sound like a conversation between red leader and gold leader. It's unfortunate. It started out without that, and then over time it just starts to do that. So you might have to use Mike's microphone in order to avoid that. But the rant went through and it was great, and it's an important thing. The thing that needs to be fixed is women's attitude, right? Men are raised with the idea from boyhood of ladies first. They already have by the time they're adults, unless they are raised in a man desert and the only people around them are women and the only male role models they have are whoever their mother bitches about the loudest. Um, if they're just raised in a normal setting where they do have male role models, they learn to compromise their interests in order to accommodate the interests of the people around them and expect the same back from other men, but they learn not to expect that from women. And they learn that women are not going to give them that. And women, when they are growing up as little girls, they don't learn to do the same thing. They don't learn to compromise their interests to accommodate the interests of the people around them. They learn that their interests are the most important thing. They get to go first. Any guy that wants to engage with them needs to earn their attention and their goodwill, but they should expect his attention and his goodwill. And so they don't know how to make relationships with men. They don't even make good relationships with each other. And you can see that in lesbian relationships where there is significantly more violence than in heterosexual or gay relationships. Um, it's very difficult to get through to people if they haven't seen it. But girls grow up not learning to be accountable to anyone. and not learning to be accountable for themselves. So they do see, like, you get married, you're the main character in the marriage, and your husband is supposed to be a supporting character. He's got a supporting role in your happiness. And that's not a way to have a marriage. It's not a way to have a relationship. And when women are um when they're in these relationships and the man acts like a fully formed real human being with his own interests and his own emotional responses to his circumstances and his experiences and so on, they get upset with him for not running their script. And over time, they start to resent the fact that they're expected to be accountable to their family, and then they drop out. And 80%, between 69 and 80%, depending on which study you look at, of divorce is initiated by women, and most of it isn't because he cheated or he hurt her or abused her, but because she's mad that he's not doing the dishes as many times as I'm doing the dishes, or he doesn't like all the same stuff that I like, or he has friends. Like, that's not he spends more time with his friends than he spends with me, but just he has friends that are not my friends. Right? They're his friends. And that that is why women don't get happily ever after. If you want happily ever after, it's a job. You have to make it happen every day. Happiness is not something that falls on your head. Nobody has ever been happy without working for it, without determining their own happiness, without deciding what they wanted and how they were going to make it happen, or deciding what to take satisfaction in.
Yeah, you can't find happiness when you're constantly a bitter bitch.
You can't find happiness. It isn't something you find. You make
True.
yourself happy. You take satisfaction in things. Your attitude determines your ability to be happy. Right? And I'm going to go to a lowest common denominator example. I grew up hearing all about, you got to have an exciting job. You got to have a job that you're passionate about. And there's always going to be parts of the job that are um, the shit tasks. You got to deal with this in order to achieve the whole job. Not every task in every job, in most jobs, not every task is exciting and fun, right? There's always grinding that you have to do. So I work as a direct support professional for intellectually disabled adults. I take care of people who cannot take care of themselves, and they're never going to be able to take care of themselves. They need help from other people, and it's a very satisfying job because I have the attitude that I want to help people. Right? It's not a satisfying job for somebody who wants to be famous and rich and um, looked up to by the masses and all that kind of stuff. Nobody's going to build a statue of me for taking care of some people who are completely disabled, right? Nobody's going to do that, and I don't want that. I would be upset if somebody did do that. I'm happy because I found a purpose, and I wrapped my sense of self-satisfaction and happiness in finding a purpose and serving that purpose and in serving other people. And that's why I'm able to be happy in a job like that. And, I could work in service to other people for my whole career and be happy. I don't have to make a ton of money. I don't have to have champagne and caviar. I don't have to have a fancy car or any kind of, particularly fancy clothes or any. I don't have to wear makeup. I don't have to have people tell me I'm pretty or any of that. And all of those things, all of those needs, and what my happiness relies on, those are my choices. I chose to rest my happiness on having that sense of purpose and providing service to others and see them benefit from it. And so when I'm in somebody's house mopping their floor, and when I get done, the floor is clean, and I'm satisfied that it is the level of cleanliness that it should be, that I've achieved the goal of the task. And then when the people that I'm taking care of are just engage in their daily living in the rooms that I've mopped, they're not going to, their feet's aren't going to stick to the floor. They're not going to get sick from something that shouldn't be there. I'm happy about that. That makes me happy because I have chosen to take satisfaction in that. I've chosen to not center my happiness on admiration and of me. I don't know how to explain it other than the fact that it's a conscious choice. You decide what you value and what's important, what you make important to you, what you look at as beneficial to you, right? What you look at as fun. I've never been tempted to use any kind of illegal substance to alter my consciousness or my working of my mind for fun. I don't even like to use any kind of prescription substance to eliminate pain when I'm in pain. And it's, again, because I have chosen to look at other things as fun. I'd rather sit and watch a movie sober and enjoy the experience and think about the creativity of the people involved and follow the story. And it's got to be a good story, though, right? You choose what you are going to value. You decide for yourself what you're going to take satisfaction with. And I think a lot of women don't understand that. And it's why they're always reaching for something else, something more, something bigger, something better, for someone else to fill that hole. That hole exists because instead of making your own choices, instead of independently deciding for yourself what you value and what you want, what you choose to enjoy and take satisfaction in, they're opening themselves up. They're leaving it open-ended, and because of that, they can't take satisfaction in hearing their husband sit back and sigh after a good, solid meal when he gets home from work. Right? They can't feel good about all the dishes are clean because I washed them and I got them completely clean without thinking about, well, he didn't do it. Right? They can't just be happy that they've achieved what they set out to do. They have to have somebody praise them for it. Or they have to resent somebody else for not doing it or not supporting them or not this or not that. And it's really a
I'm sorry,
shame.
did you hear me?
No.
Yeah, and I was gonna add on to that, and being jealous of other people who have that when they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So happily ever after, when they look for happily ever after, right? If you don't know how to shape your own attitude, if you don't know how to find joy or take joy from the little things in life and from um, accomplishing something that makes somebody else happy, right? Accomplished or satisfied or comfortable, right? From sharing or being with other people. If you don't know how to determine for yourself how you're going to feel about these things, you don't know how to create happily ever after. And when times get difficult, instead of taking your partner's hand and saying, we are going to get through this, let's figure it out together, it's, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do for me? How are you going to solve this problem for me? And that's when the marriage fails. You don't have that. You haven't built the intimacy. You haven't built the cooperation. You haven't built the team that your marriage is. You're not yoked. You can't be unequally yoked because you're not even yoked. Right? You're just two people walking alongside each other part way through a field. And the minute that you run across a rock, instead of taking his hand and saying, we're going to move this together, and putting your back into it just as much as you expect him to put his, you step aside and wait for him to move the rock. And if he can't do it by himself, you walk away. That is what is wrong with women today. Right? She's not even going to get help for him. She's just leaving. So this woman says, happily ever after. But in reality, it comes with certain expectations of roles, responsibilities, and shared decisions. This is a problem for women. Shared decisions in particular. Right? It stops being I want, and it starts being what's best for us. What do we agree on? What do we want? What do we need to compromise on? And that's difficult for women. Not because women aren't made capable of doing that. They're not. Women are born with the same as little girls with the same capability of learning that. It's just that they're not taught. She goes on, these seem to be encoded in social norms, subtly insisting on leaving chunks of one's independence. Remember, independence actually means freedom from responsibility when she writes it, at the altar of marriage. So leaving chunks of one's freedom from responsibility at the altar of marriage. It makes much more sense when you read it correctly. Combine that with stories of women who have lost their identity post-marriage, and the fear grows. So it's another one. Like, what does she mean by identity? Again, it's a big question. Are women supposed to like never grow and change through their whole lives? You're the party girl before you decide to settle down with some guy, right? Or you're the boss bitch before deciding to settle down with some guy. Or what are the other identities that feminists like to suggest we should never criticize?
Makes you wonder what happily ever after actually means.
Yeah.
Like, who actually gets to live happily ever after, because no, even the perfect marriage between a man and a woman ends at some point with the death of the man or the woman. So
Yep.
it's never quite happily ever after, not like it is in the fairy tales. I think that's what they're talking about, by the way. They're talking about the fairy tales, like men and women just happen. Well, something happens. Question mark? Question mark? Question mark? Profit. Any given individual man and woman get to live happily forever after, and they never have to think about the lifetime of struggles that happens after that, because that's not part of the fairy tale. That's part of the romantic comedy that got them into that relationship in the first place. It's never quite covered how they live a life together.
Yeah.
for the rest of that story.
And when you think about it, boys are raised on tales where they earn happiness, right? The hero's journey.
Yes.
They're raised on tales where you have to go through hell to get to the point where you can build happiness, and then you build it. Right? It's not automatic at the end. It's just now you have the opportunity. Girls are raised on stories where they get rescued from hell and happiness just happens for them afterward. And that teaches a complete contradiction in in expectations to the sexes when they're going to get married. And of course, what ends up happening out of it is that men, when they're married, they spend their whole life trying to make their wife happy. And women, when they're married, they spend their whole life expecting more. And no matter how much more there is, it's never enough. That lesson creates a hole that can never be filled. And it's not a hole in your heart, it's a hole in your head. It's really detrimental to both sexes. It doesn't even, feminism does this all the time, and gynocentrism does this all the time. This can't even really be blamed on exclusively on one or the other. It is so old and has been around for so long that it's hard to identify it.
And yet,
But
normies.
it's a hole in women's head that's been there for centuries. Go
and
ahead,
yet,
Mike.
normies, when you see the general memes of normies, they blame it on Disney and pornography. Like they blame Disney for making women wonder where their Prince Charming is, and they blame pornography for boys wondering where their insatiable whore is. But I think the problem predates both of these things. I think both Disney and pornography are reflections of. We'll go ahead and call it romantic chivalry, shall we? It's different iterations of the same thing,
which traces back to the 13th century.
Yes, if not before that.
Yeah. Shout out to gynocentrism.com, by the way. If you want to learn more about that, go
Peter
visit
Wright's your
that
boy.
site.
Find yourself some Peter Wright. Get it in your life.
Definitely. So she goes on and says, for some, it might seem like a trade-off between marriage and their valued independence. But again, smart women know this fear isn't a blanket truth. It's more of a personal conflict that varies from person to person, much like every other reason on our list. And there you have it. The first reason why women might be put off by marriage, the fear of losing independence. But let's keep our minds and hearts open as we explore the rest of our list, shall we? And so she really hasn't said much here. This is a listicle. So that's to be expected. But she did give us something in terms of understanding women. Women don't use the words that mean the things they are trying to describe when they talk about things that you might be responsible for, like determining your own happiness. Self-determination is an aspect of independence. If you are paying your own bills, you do that, generally speaking, by earning your own money. To earn your own money, you have to determine what kind of work you're going to do, what you're good at, and what you can do, and what's needed that somebody will pay you to do, and you go out and do it, and then you pay your bills. That's an aspect of independence. But when women talk about independence, they are more often referring to freedom of movement, right? Freedom to determine things they want to do for themselves, not things they want to do for other people. And that's a problem. Then she goes on to cite struggles with commitment. Now, we get told all the time, right? Men won't commit. Men are the ones that never want to settle down. Men are the ones that get cold feet at the altar and so on, as if they don't have reasons. Like the fact that the law doesn't support them if after the altar, after the marriage certificate is signed, the wife abandons the marriage. Right? The law doesn't support him, so at his end, he's making a commitment, but at her end, she may not be. But this is interesting. Struggles with commitment. So if women take the marriage commitment seriously, which they should, but many don't, this might make sense. Another reason, she says, as I've learned from my own journey, stems from the apprehension over the whole till death do us part concept. During my 20s, I had some deep-seated fears about being tied to just one person for the rest of my life. I mean, that's a pretty big commitment, right? The uncertainty of such a long-term pledge was daunting. Plus, I was in a constant state of self-discovery and growth. That's kind of a key clue as well. She goes, I remember wondering why or how could I possibly commit to someone when I was still figuring out who I was and where I wanted to be. So I think a lot of women have this idea that process stops when you become an adult. And you're not an adult till it stops. It doesn't. And when you get into a lifelong commitment with somebody, when you get married or you form a life partnership, it becomes a journey together. You are now together in your state of self-discovery and growth. You discover each other and yourselves together, and you grow together, and you face the challenges that come with that together, and you help each other refine yourselves together. You learn from each other. Right? You see things in each other that you admire. And self-discovery, I hate that term in some ways because it makes it sound like you don't decide who you are and what kind of person you're going to be. It's fair to call it self-discovery when you're learning about your own limits to your intelligence and your physical capabilities and stuff like that. Oh, my balance isn't good enough to handle walking a tightrope. And it would take a lot of work for me to get to the point where it's good enough for me to do that. Is that something that I think I value, that I want to do? Am I passionate about this? And you then decide yes or no. All right. That's not self-discovery. Self-discovery is the part where you figure out what your limits are and what you might have to do if you decide to value that task and that skill and develop it, right? But the other half is self refinement. And a lot of women forget that part. Boys grow up learning that they have to do that they're responsible for self refinement. They're not necessarily always given a name for it, right? Maybe they're told to get good, but you are building yourself brick by brick. Each little characteristic, each little ethical determination, each moral, each value, and it's not discovery. That growth is an active process, not a passive process. It's the first thing that is undermining women's development into adults, is that they think that life is a state of self-discovery, but not a state of self-refinement. That growth, personal growth, is somehow a passive process, not an active process. That you're not responsible for the process of sorting out what are good ideas and what are bad ideas for you, and so on. Determining what things you'll take responsibility for, and recognizing what things that you shouldn't, or that you can't fulfill or won't, fulfill, and so on. Well, it's not showing me the name. There we go. So humans VD 3269 gave us $5 in the special chat and said the biggest issue with marriage, first and foremost, is big daddy government tipping the scales and ensuring women have every risk, have very risk and gain for divorce. I think what you mean is, very little risk. Okay, there we go. It says afterwards, and a lot of gain. Sorry for the confusion. And yeah, they do. They get cash and prizes in the divorce court, whereas men get punishment and shame. And it is incentivizing divorce for women, where men are expected to uphold their commitment. So she doesn't want to get married until she's perfect. That's a problem. Nobody's perfect. I felt like marriage might prevent me from becoming the full individual version of myself that I was striving to be. Again, that is a terrible attitude. I don't know about everybody else that's married, but watching the successful marriages in my family, one of the things I figured out was that nobody becomes the full individual version of themselves that they're striving to be until they take responsibility for their partnership with another person. You as a individual that's not in a relationship, as an individual who's not even trying to be in a relationship, right? Especially not a marriage, there's a degree of solipsism that prevents you from developing aspects of yourself that only develop when you take responsibility for other people. Now, men are forced to do that even when they're single, to a degree that women are not. They have, anytime they leave their house, anytime they're in the workplace and so on, they're expected to have consideration for the people around them. They have a bigger level of accountability to the laws of their community, and they are expected to have a purpose in their community, or they're considered to be trash, disposable, not valued members of the community. Whereas women can be a lump on a bench and still be considered a valued member of the community because she's female. And so they don't have there's not a woman in the world who can develop to a fully formed adult without at least taking responsibility for a household and a family, and having consideration for a partner, and being able to engage in teamwork for their household with that partner. But this woman thinks that she has to reach that point before she can get a partner. Now she says, I realize understandably that this might not echo with every woman's experience, and marriage indeed can, and for many it does, encourage personal growth in many ways. But for me back then, it was a significant reason that made me apprehensive about marriage. So there's reason number 2, a struggle with commitment amidst self-discovery. But every woman's journey is unique, and there are more reasons to list on our list to unpack. And unpack we will next week, because it's 9:00 and I'm gonna stop the show. But I'm going to interpret for this woman again. So when she says struggles with commitment, the first one, she said fear of losing independence, and the second one was struggles with commitment. So number 1 was actually fear of gaining responsibility, and number 2 is struggles with accountability. So I heard myself echo. Was somebody else getting ready to talk?
Just checking my audio. Can you hear me? Am I
Yes,
robo?
we can hear you. You are audible.
Okay. Yes.
So, all right. Well, with that, then I don't. Oh, I think the reason that I don't see any super chows is because I've got some sort of stupid ad over my Discord. Let me see if I. What the? Okay, there we go. All right, so we do have a super chow. I just couldn't see it because Discord covered it with an ad. So Gary Thomas gave us $5 at 8:30. So this is about half an hour ago. Said Hannah just described the plot of Y: The Last Man. The story is basically a virus kills the entirety of the male species, and every civilization on Earth falls apart. It was originally a comic book series that got made into a 1-season TV show. That's perfect, 1 season, because that's how long women would last.
Accurate.
You could predict how feminists reacted to it, given the story's premise, outrage, and condemnation. Yeah, I'm sure they probably whined about it quite a bit. How dare you? How dare you? I've had women argue with me on X that the 3% of women workers in the field of electricians and such could maintain the entire electrical power grid for women after men all disappeared, because they are unrealistic and they have no idea how this shit works. So they think it's mostly automatic and the men aren't doing any real work. They have no idea how they're going to get all the HR ladies and train them how to do it.
Well, I've been talking to it for about a half an hour. I just don't understand what its problem is. It won't work.
Yep. And they try to train them, but their language is too aggressive. So the entire training session breaks down into a meeting on what type of words you can use to describe how electricity works. Oh God, I need to end this. So with that, I think I'm going to thank everybody for listening. We will continue with the listicle next week, and we might go back and forth a little bit between the listicle. Remember, this is what women are saying, right? While they're saying that they're not having babies because men are immature. Oh, and we got a super chow in the regular chat, the horizontal chat. Voltaire's puppet gave us $5 or 5 GBP. I don't
Great
know where
British
that's from.
pounds.
Ah, so way more than $5 then. Closer to 10. Said sound is sounding soundly now. Thank you for that. And we will be back next week with more female bullshit to look at. Sorry, guys.
And that's not a threat. That's a promise.
That's a promise. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to my co-hosts for going over the bullshit with me. Sorry we could not get Richard the Lionhearted in. We're going to try a different way next week and see if we can get him in as well, because I think he'll find this amusing too. Thanks, Brian, for all the work you do in the background. And everybody else who works in the background to make HBR Talk happen. Good night, all.
Good night, y'all.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.